ArenaNet just announced Guild Wars 3 is coming, and I understand if your first instinct is to wait for it. But before you do, I just spent 48 hours with the free version of Guild Wars 2, and what I found changed what I thought I knew about free-to-play games. I logged in Guild Wars 2 for the first time, and something unexpected happened. It did not overwhelm me, it did not throw a wall of systems at me and told me to figure it out. It gave me a character creator that actually let me build something interesting, dropped me into a world that looked genuinely beautiful, and within the first few minutes, I was already doing something that felt like a story. I have to be honest with you, when somebody told me that Guild Wars 2 has a genuinely good free tier, my first instinct was, yeah, sure it does. I know how free games work. I know what free usually means. It means it gives you just enough to make you want more. You know, calculated generosity. So I wanted to know where that fine line is in Guild Wars 2. I rolled a ranger, played to level 80, touched nothing that required an expansion, no mounts, no elite specializations, no extra story chapters. Just the base game, all the way to the ceiling. 48 hours later, I had finished the story. And the line I was looking for? It wasn't where I expected it to be, not even close. And that's the question I spent 48 hours trying to answer. Not why is Guild Wars 2 good, there are too many videos about that. The real questions are simpler. What does it mean for a free game to actually respect me, the player? How far does it take me? And when the paywall finally appears, is what's behind it actually worth the price they're asking? Because here is what nobody tells you up front. The free version isn't a trial. It's an entire game, and figuring out what that actually means, that's what this video is really about. Guild Wars 2 launched in 2012, 14 years ago, and it's still here, still getting expansions, still pulling in new players. The 6th expansion, Visions of Eternity, dropped in October 2025. It took players to a brand new island called Castora, a place so remote that the game's world treated it as basically mythological. Quarterly updates are rolling out throughout 2026, and the game is not winding down. But none of that is what this video is about. This video is actually about what you get before you spend a single cent. The core game, everything ArenaNet built between 2012 and the first expansion in 2015, is completely free. All 9 professions, max level, the full personal story, PvP, dungeons, fractals, hundreds of zones, you can download it right now and play it indefinitely without paying a cent. Now the question is, how much of that actually matters? Let me be brutally honest about the first impression. Guild Wars 2 doesn't have a bad tutorial, it has a quiet one. It introduced me to combat, to the event system, to the world, and then it mostly stepped back and let me exist in it. There was no urgent hand pushing me forward, no checklist telling me what to do next. And for some people, that's going to feel like nothing is happening. But here's what actually is happening. The world is built around dynamic events. You don't just pick quests over and over from NPCs standing around with exclamation marks over their head. Instead, you walk into a zone and things are just occurring. A village is getting raided, a caravan needs an escort, a veteran creature spawned on the edge of a cliff and 12 other players are already fighting it. You join in and contribute, you get rewarded, you move on. It sounds simple, and yet it feels surprisingly alive. And the way experience works in this game is genuinely different. You gain a lot of XP from exploring, not just killing things or completing quests. You gain from discovering new areas, from uncovering points of interest, from climbing to a vista and watching your character take in the view. The game rewards curiosity as a mechanic. I felt that immediately, and it kept me moving. Now, let's talk about what Guild Wars 2 actually feels like to play. The combat is action-oriented in a way that surprised me for a game this old. You have 10 skills at any time, 5 tied to whatever weapon you're holding, and 5 you customize yourself. You can dodge, you can swap weapons mid-fight, you can create combo effects with other players without ever needing to coordinate formally. It's fluid in a way that most MMOs from this era aren't. And here's what I genuinely love. The game doesn't tell you how to play your class. It gives you the tools and trusts you to figure out what works. My ranger felt different at level 20 than it did at level 60. Not because the game forced a build on me, but because I kept experimenting. The horizontal progression is really fun, and I believe it's one of the game's best ideas. There's no gear treadmill forcing you to grind the same dungeon for a stat upgrade that makes your last week's gear obsolete. The gear you earn stays relevant, which means you're playing the game for the experience of playing it, not chasing a number that keeps moving. That's rare, especially in a free-to-play game. But I want to be straight about something. The Ranger at level 80, without the expansions, is a capable class. It's fine, it's not spectacular. The elite specializations locked behind paid content are where the real class identity lives. Playing a core class all the way to level 80 feels like reading 3/4 of a book. and then being told that the last chapter costs extra. You can feel the shape of what it's supposed to be, you just can't quite reach it yet. For a free game, that's not what I expected, but I kept waiting for the catch. Now, let's get specific about the exploration, because this is the part almost nobody really talks about. I finished the free version of Guild Wars 2 at level 80, 48 hours into the game. Personal story, done. Free content ceiling almost reached. And I want to show you what that actually looks like in numbers. I completed 123 out of 303 tasks, 36 out of 189 hero points, 218 out of 486 waypoints, 256 out of 635 points of interest, and 72 out of 226 vistas. Think about what those numbers mean. The free game didn't give me a slice of the world, it gave me roughly half of it, and I still hadn't seen half of that half. The map is enormous. The zones are varied: forests, deserts, frozen tundras, volcanic lowlands, massive underground cities. Each one has its own events, its own stories, its own secrets hidden behind jumps and puzzles and exploration. I spent an entire session just wandering, not completing objectives, just wandering, and I kept finding things. That's the free game, not a vertical slice, not a teaser, an actual sprawling world that takes genuine time to see. And the story, the personal story of our character, is almost fully voiced, which really surprised me. There are cutscenes, there are cinematic moments, there are choices that shape how your character's early arc unfolds. It's not the deepest narrative in gaming, but it's presented with real care. The short slideshows and animated sequence that punctuate the story quests make it feel like the world has weight, like events actually matter. I finished the story at 48.4 hours, and when it ended, I didn't feel cheated. I felt like I played a complete game that happened to be the first chapter of something larger. 48 hours in, and I still haven't found the floor, which made the ceiling, when I hit it, feel sharper. Now, something that I didn't expect is that the community is generally good. I mean that specifically. Not good for an MMO with the usual asterisks attached. No, actually good. People help each other during events naturally because the game's design makes helping each other the only thing that makes sense. There's no competition for kills or resources. Someone joins your fight, you both benefit. I asked questions in the map chat. I got answers. Not dismissive ones. Actual helpful, enthusiastic answers from people who clearly still love this game after years of playing it. The mounts look incredible. Even locked behind expansions, you see other players riding them constantly. Raptors that leap across chasms, birds of prey that let you glide off cliffs, bugs that hover over surfaces. It's impossible to watch that and not feel the pull of wanting to get there yourself. ArenaNet knew exactly what they were doing making mounts that visible to free players. Same with cosmetics. Fashion in this game is generally creative and players put real effort into it. You can tell this is a community that cares about how their character looks, and the game rewards that care with real variety. The game was working. I knew it was working. That's what made me nervous. Alright, enough with the good stuff. The free version has a ceiling and you feel it. The 2 character slots mean you're probably not experimenting with multiple builds the way the game is designed for. The limited backspace generally becomes annoying by the time you're deep into the mid-game. And the trading post restrictions mean you're operating in the economy with one hand tied behind your back. And don't get me wrong, none of these are real deal breakers individually, but together they create a low-level persistent friction. You know, a feeling that the game is always holding something just slightly out of reach. And the story, as good as the personal story is, it ends and then immediately points you towards content that costs money. The living world, the expansion narratives, the answers to questions that the base game raises. The ending of the free story isn't exactly a cliffhanger, but it's clearly a beginning. You've met the world, now the world wants you to invest in it. And that's not a complaint, that's just me being honest. So, the real question. You have played the free game. You've hit level 80. You've seen half the map and finished the story, and you're standing at the edge of everything the base game offers. And the game is asking, are you in? Here's my honest answer. The expansions go on sale regularly, at good prices. This is not a game that holds its paid content at full price and dares you to flinch. Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire have been bundled together for years. End of Dragons, Secrets of the Obscure, Giant Tier Wilds, they cycle through discounts. If you wait for a sale, the cost of catching up to the current content is generally reasonable. And the big question, what do I get for that money? Mounts that change how you move through the world, elite specializations that complete the class identity that the free tier only points at, an entire continuation of the story that the base game sets up, new maps that are among the most visually ambitious zones in any MMO, a living world that has been running for over a decade and shows no signs of stopping. The free game is a complete first chapter. The expansions are the rest of the book. And based on 48 hours in a world where I only had the first chapter, I really do want to read the rest. Now, here's the paradox with the free tier from Guild Wars 2. It's generous enough to feel complete, but limited enough to make you want more. It's a game that respects your time and rewards your curiosity, while quietly making the case, not through pressure or manipulation, just through quality, that there is more worth seeing. I played 48 hours. I hit level 80, I finished the personal story. I barely scratched the map. 123 out of 303 tasks, almost half of the waypoints and hero points, around half of the vistas, and a story that ended on the edge of something bigger. Somewhere in those 48 hours, I also rolled a necromancer. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to see how a different class would feel in the same world. That's when I knew the free tier had done its job. Not by locking content behind a wall, but by making me want more of what was already there. That's not a bad free game. That's probably one of the best arguments for buying a game I've ever experienced. Because it didn't sell me the expansions by showing me trailers. It sold me by giving me more than 24 hours of a world I actually wanted to stay in. So is Guild Wars 2's free tier worth your time? Yes, without a question. Are the expansions worth buying? Play the game first, all the way through. Reach level 80. Finish the personal story. Look at the map and see all the things you haven't touched yet. Then ask yourself that question again. I think you already know the answer. And if you're asking whether to play Guild Wars 2 before Guild Wars 3, yes, start here, play it, because this is where the world starts.